Blood pressure. What do the contractions of the heart increase? Blood pressure. Through arteries. How does the blood get to every cell in the body? The blood splits into tiny capillaries which take blood to all the cells. How does the blood get back to the heart? The blood travels through the veins. What gets lower as blood flows through the system? Pressure. What is systolic pressure? When blood pressure is at its highest, occurs when the heart contracts. When blood pressure is at its lowest, occurs when the heart relaxes. What is blood pressure measured in? mm of mercury, mmHg. What other factors increase blood pressure? Smoking, obesity, too much alcohol, and stress. What health problems can cause high blood pressure? Burst blood vessels leading to strokes, brain damage, and kidney damage. How can high blood pressure be decreased? Lifestyle changes, eating healthy, exercising, etc. What health problems can cause low blood pressure? Poor circulation and lack of food and oxygen for tissue, leading to dizziness and fainting. How does carbon monoxide increase blood pressure? Mixes with hemoglobin in red blood cells, reducing oxygen carried. Heart rate is then increased, making the heart contract frequently. How does nicotine increase blood pressure? Increase heart rate, making the heart contract frequently. Heart disease. What is heart disease? Any disease which affects the heart. What can high saturated fat or salt in your diet lead to? Heart disease or high blood pressure? What can saturated fats cause to build up of? Cholesterol. What is cholesterol? A fatty substance. What happens if you get too much cholesterol? It builds up in the arteries and forms plaques in the artery walls. What does plaque do? Narrow the arteries and restrict blood flow, leading to heart attacks. What supplies the heart muscle with blood? Coronary arteries. What happens to the heart muscle when the arteries are narrow? The heart muscle receives less oxygen. What is thrombosis? Blood clot. What does thrombosis do? Restricts blood flow. What happens if blood flow to the heart is blocked? An area of the heart muscle will be cut off from its oxygen supply. This leads to heart attack. Blood sugar levels. respiration in cells, vigorous exercise. How are changes in blood glucose monitored and controlled? What happens if the blood glucose level is too high? Insulin is added. What happens if the blood glucose level is too low? Insulin is not added. Where can glycogen be stored until the blood sugar level is low again? Liver. Where do hormones travel? Through the blood. What are type 1 diabetes? Where the pancreas produces little or no insulin. What are type 2 diabetes? Where a person becomes resistant to insulin. Antibiotics. What are antibiotics? Drugs that kill bacteria without killing your own cells. What can't they kill? Viruses. What can be used to treat viral infections? Antivirals. What do antivirals do? Treat viral infections. Cancer. How is cancer caused? Body cells dividing out of control. What is benign? Where the tumor grows until there's no room. What is malignant? Where the tumor grows and can spread to other sites on the body. How can you reduce the risk of cancer? Not smoking reduces lung cancer risk. Eating less processed meat and more fiber reduces colon cancer risk. Essential nutrients. What are the 6 essential nutrients? Carbohydrates, fats, proteins, vitamins, minerals, and water. What are the functions of carbohydrates? Provides energy. Provides energy, acts as an energy store, and provides. What are the functions of proteins? Growth and repair. What are the functions of vitamins and minerals? Various functions. Example, vitamin C prevents scurvy. Another example, iron makes hemoglobin. What are the functions of water? Prevents dehydration. What are carbohydrates made of? Simple sugars. Where are they stored? In the liver as glycogen are converted to fats. What are fats made of? Fatty acids and glycerol. Where are they stored? Under the skin and around organs as adipose tissue. What are proteins made of? Amino acids. Where are they stored? They don't get stored. What are essential amino acids? Amino acids that we need to obtain from our diet. Do animal protein or plant protein contain all the essential amino acids? Animal proteins. What does this mean for vegetarians? They need to eat proteins from a wide variety of plant sources. Diet problems. Why do children and teenagers need more protein? For growth and repair. Why do older people need more calcium? To protect themselves against degenerative bone disease. Why do females need more iron? To replace the iron lost in menstrual blood. Why do active people need protein for muscle development and carbohydrates for energy? What 3 types of reasons do people go on different diets? Religious, personal, and medical. Why are some people intolerant to certain foods? They can't make the enzymes needed to digest their food properly. How is kwashiorkor caused? Eating too little protein. What 2 main reasons do developing countries have a lack of protein? Overpopulation, lack of money. Fitness. What does being healthy mean? Free from infections or disease. What does being fit mean? A measure of how well you perform physical tasks. What are the 5 factors of what fitness is measured in? Stamina, strength, speed, agility, and flexibility. Drug issues. What happens when someone gets addicted to a drug? Withdrawal symptoms. What is tolerance? When your body gets used to a dosage of a drug and needs a higher dosage to have the same effect. What is rehabilitation? Where you get help or support to overcome an addiction. Drug types. What are the 5 drug types? Depressants, stimulants, painkillers, performance enhancers, and hallucinogens. What do depressants do? Decrease activity in the brain, e.g. alcohol. What do stimulants do? Increase activity in the brain, e.g. caffeine. What do painkillers do? Reduce the number of painful stimuli at nerve endings near injury, e.g. aspirin. What do performance enhancers do? Build muscles, e.g. steroids. What do hallucinogens do? Distort what you see and hear, e.g. LSD. Drugs, alcohol, and smoking. What class drug is LSD? Class A. What class drug is anabolic steroids? Class C. What class drug is cannabis? Class B. What is positive about alcohol? It makes people feel less inhibited. What is cirrhosis? When the death of liver cells form scar tissue that stops blood reaching the liver. How does this happen? After drinking lots of alcohol over long periods of time. What could happen? If the liver can't clean blood, dangerous substances start to build up and damage body. What can dehydration from alcohol do? Damage cells. What does being drunk lead to? How does carbon monoxide lead to heart disease? It reduces the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood. Lack of oxygen then leads to heart attack. How can tar cause lung, throat, mouth and esophageal cancer? It collects in lungs and has toxic chemicals, one of which is carcinogen, which makes mutation in DNA, more likely leading to cell division. How do you get smoker's cough? Smoking damages the cilia on epithelial tissue lining the tubes in the lungs, encouraging mucus to be produced. This sticks in air passages, causing smoker's cough. How can smoking lead to low-weight babies? Low oxygen in the blood of a pregnant woman can deprive fetus of oxygen, leading to a small baby at birth. Drug development. What is often used first in drug development? Computer models. What can they do? Identify promising drugs. What is the next step in drug development? Tests on human tissue. What is the last step? Develop and test drugs on animals. What is a clinical trial? When two groups are given a drug in which one group gets a placebo. What is the placebo effect? When a patient thinks he's been treated and starts feeling better. What's a blind trial? When the patient doesn't know if they're getting the drug or a placebo. What is a double-blind trial? When neither the scientist or the patient knows if they're getting the drug or a placebo until the results are collected. Neurons and reflexes. What are three types of sensory neurons? What do your sensory neurons do? Carry information from receptors to the central nervous system when there's a change in environment. What does the central nervous system then do? Sends information along a motor neuron to an effector. What is the job of the central nervous system? To coordinate the information. Why does do we have reflex actions to stop injuring ourselves? How does it do this? The nervous system uses electrical impulses to allow very quick response. What is the benefit of conscious brain not being involved in the reflex arc? No thinking is required, speeding up response time. How are the neurons connected? The sensory neurons connects to what happens when you get stung by a bee? The pain receptor is stimulated. What's next? Messages travel along the sensory neurons. What's next? Message passes along relay neuron. What's next? Message passes along motor neuron. What's next? Message reaches muscles and muscle contracts. What is passed along the axon of the cell? Electrical impulses. Why do neurons have branch endings? To connect with other neurons. What does the sheath along an axon do? It acts as an electrical insulator, speeding up electrical impulses. What's a synapse? Connection between two neurons. What does the electrical impulse trigger? The release of transmitter chemicals which diffuse across the gap. What do these chemicals do? Bind to receptor neurons in the membrane of the next neuron, setting off new electrical impulses. What do stimulant drugs do? Increase the amount of transmitted chemicals, which increases the frequency of impulses. What do depressants do? Bind with receptor molecules on the membrane of neuron, blocking electrical impulses. The eye. What does the cornea do? Refracts light into eye. What does the iris do? Controls how much light enters the pupil. What does the lens do? Refracts light, focusing it onto the retina. What does the retina do? The light-sensitive part. Its receptors, rods and cones, detect light. What does the rods do? Sensitive in dim light, but can't detect color. What does the cones do? Sensitive to colors, but not dim light. What does the optic nerve do? Carries impulses from receptors to the brain. What happens when you focus on distant objects? Ciliary muscles relax, slackening the suspensory ligaments, which means the lens becomes a much more rounded shape, so light is refracted more. What happens when you focus on close objects? Ciliary muscle contracts, allowing the suspensory ligaments to pull tight, which means the lens is pulled into a less round shape, so light is refracted less. Why are some people long-sighted? Their lens is the wrong shape and doesn't bend the light enough, or the eyeball is too short. Where are images brought into focus? Behind the retina. Why are some people short-sighted? Their lens is the wrong shape and bends the light too much, or the eyeball is too long. Where are images brought into focus? In front of the retina. EAR, eating disorders, and BMI. What is EAR? Estimated average daily requirement. EAR in grams equals 0.8 times body mass in kilograms. An estimate of how much protein someone should have. What kind of disorder is anorexic disorder? Psychological. What does BMI mean? Body mass index. What is the equation? BMI equals body mass in kilograms divided by height squared in meters. What does it show? Your weight description. Why isn't it reliable? Muscle weighs more than fat. Plant hormones. What plant hormone controls growth at the tips of shoots and roots? Auxins. What is phototropism? When the plant moves the light. What is geotropism? The growth of plants based on gravity. What happens when the shoot tips is exposed to light? More auxins go in the shade, so the shoot bends towards the light. Kill certain plants by disrupting its growth pattern while keeping grass crops untouched. What do rooting powders do? Helps grow plants from cuttings or other plants. Why do we use hormones to delay the ripening of fruit? So they can ripen whilst at the supermarket. What is dormancy? When the plant won't grow until they've been through certain conditions. What hormone breaks this dormancy? Gibberellin.